Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. What is the most foolish error you have ever witnessed a coworker with incompetence make? Part 3. My first year working as a lifeguard during the summer was the first year of my job. During the middle of the summer, a fellow first-year guard worked at a different city pool approximately 20 minutes away. He was transferred to our pool from that previous location. It's not my intention to criticize the intelligence or level of competence of other people, but this individual was, without a doubt, one of the most inept people I have ever encountered. Little bit of history. In essence, the dive bay of the pool where he had previously worked was experiencing issues. This was due to the fact that a more upscale pool had recently replaced their pumps. The old pumps were releasing debris and an excessive amount of chemicals into the pool, and the city had made the decision that it would be a good idea to transfer the broken pumps to the dive bay of this pool. You should know that this location featured not one, but two distinct pools, one for recreational swimming and another for scuba diving. As soon as they turned on the pumps, it immediately began performing the very same actions that caused the superior pool to make the replacement pool obsolete. It was necessary for them to turn off the pumps and close off their dive bay until they were able to repair the pumps. This meant that they had to shock the pool multiple times a day in order to maintain the chlorination level. This indicates that there was an extremely high concentration of chemicals in the water, making it unhealthy for people to swim in. Having said that, let's return to the child and the reason he was brought over to our team. You may be able to identify the direction in which this is going. We will refer to him as Billy. It was Billy who had been present to see the pumps that had broken. On multiple occasions, he had assisted in shocking the pool. He had a good understanding of the problems, but one day, a group of people approached him and inquired as to whether or not the dive bay was open so that they could make use of the diving boards. If there had been another guard, they would have responded with something along the lines of, "Unfortunately not, we're having issues with the chemicals," or something similar, and the swimmers would have continued with their day. Not Billy, however. After that, Billy proceeded to get off the stand, walk into the office, and then proceed to grab the keys to the dive bay, which was closed and locked, and proceeded to open it. According to him, there were people swimming in the pool that was broken, and he did not see anything wrong with it. I'm not sure whether it was another guard who was coming to rotate him who saw it first, or whether the pool supervisor came outside, but when the supervisor saw it, Billy was in a lot of trouble. Billy was reprimanded, and it appeared that he had either forgotten why it was not acceptable to let people swim in there, or he had not pieced together all of the details that were clearly right in front of him. The swimmers were immediately told to get out of the water, and Billy was reprimanded. On account of the fact that it was his first year, the supervisor had the intention of firing him, but ultimately decided to show some mercy to him. This resulted in him being moved to our pool. The reason for this was that the majority of the people who worked at our pool were a little bit older, with the majority of our guards ranging from 17 to 25 years old, whereas his previous pool only had guards who were younger than 16 years old. He didn't cause any more major issues like that one that occurred at our pool, but he did say a lot of other things that left me in awe of how stupid they were. During one of our conversations, he attempted to convince me that fish did not require oxygen because there's no oxygen in water and that it would be acceptable to cover a fish tank with a lid that was airtight. His tone was solemn. He didn't end up coming back after that year. As a night receptionist at a fancy apartment building, I had a coworker who would be there before me. She did my job and then was let go when I was hired. Every morning, one of our jobs was to set up the umbrellas by the pool for the people who lived there. We also wrote down what happened during our shifts in a book so that people who came after us wouldn't be surprised. Well, I was reading that book and came across a note from her, let's call her Janice, that made no sense to me at all. So I used the camera system we had and went to the day and time of the event. I'll try to paint a picture. Janice and a woman in her 50s walk out to the backyard to a place by the pool with chairs and tables where they can set up umbrellas. Her eye falls on a bird sitting there, not moving, and with what looks like a hurt wing. When Janice is done with the umbrellas, she goes to the desk to look for something. She finds a box. She then goes outside again and finds a way to get the bird into the box. After that, she opens the building's door slowly and walks slowly to the desk. About the bird box. She leaves the box on the desk without a lid or anything else on top of it and goes about her morning tasks. A resident has come down to the breakfast area to watch TV and wait for breakfast when she gets back. She greets him as she walks past him on her way to the desk. She walks over to the desk and opens the box. There are still birds there, so everything is fine. She likely thought to herself, "What a cute bird," as she went to pet it. As soon as she put her hand in the box to pet the cute bird, it flies like a bullet into the building and is no longer seen. Ascends to a balcony on the second floor with a view of the front desk. Now, I want to know what a sensible person would do in this situation. Should I call the boss? Tell your boss? Do you want to call animal control or something like that? You should keep in mind that Janice is stupid and lacks common sense. The bird takes off and she is now free inside the building out of sight. I really should do something about that is probably the last thing she thinks to herself. Instead, she walks over to the one resident and talks with him for an hour. When housekeeping came back about an hour and a half later, they found the bird. That's when she thought to bring it up. The worst thing about this story is that wasn't why she was fired. I have a lot of stories about weird things Janice did that only she could understand. All of this is pretty much what a good manager would want to see. She was fired because she wouldn't take out the trash in the morning and left a bunch of trash-filled boxes on her desk because she didn't want to deal with them. Edit, the bird was fine, animal control was called, it was treated and released. A woman was hired by my business to help with accounting. One of her jobs was to send payments to vendors by mail. The CFO would get the check, pay the bill, and give the woman the envelope to mail. At some point, after about a month, our vendors called us angry and asked why we weren't paying our bills. A lot of companies that had been working with us for a long time stopped working with us all of a sudden because they thought we were going out of business because we couldn't pay our bills, etc. The CFO was very confused because we had already paid for everything. The woman we hired heard all the noise and quit right away. One day they went to lunch and never came back. This clearly sent up red flags, so they began searching her desk. Her desk drawer was full of bills for a whole month. She never put them in the mailbox, though. It's the easiest job in the world. She picked not to do it. Why? No one ever found out. What is the worst thing that a-hole neighbors or homeowners associations have done to you, Redditors? Part 3. My mom has been having a lot of stupid HOA crap lately. She called the HOA 2.5 years ago to get the right paperwork for asking for a new storm door. After 7 tries and 3 weeks of not hearing back from the HOA, she decided to just do it. She called the contractor the HOA uses and had them install one of their standard doors. She had to get a new door because the old one was broken and she didn't want to have to deal with having it installed in late fall or winter. The HOA called her in November to tell her that her door didn't meet the standards and that she needed to change it before January. She talked to a lawyer about it, and to make a long story short, she had to change the door. I told her that the HOA can go F themselves because she tried to do it their way and they never responded. Also, who missed the door 2 years ago? You can tell it's not the same as the doors on the other condos from the back where her unit is. The real story is that the HOA manager is a jerk who follows the rules whenever he wants to. Complete big fish in a little pond scenario, but he's really a small fish in the smallest pond. Pushing around a 65-year-old retiree over a $300 door, which for some reason they told her was nearly $4,000, is Bush League BS. The house where I grew up is on top of a hill, and our backyard had a great hill for sledding. There were 2 or 3 big trees on the hill, but other than that, it was clear. When I was 2 or 3, we moved in. There were a lot of dead trees and rocks in this flat area at the bottom of the hill. For about 10 years, my dad moved the dead trees into the nearby woods and threw every rock he could find there every day. When we were old enough, we knew it was safe to sled there along with other great places to do so. This piece of land wasn't assigned to anyone and wasn't part of any plot. According to local laws, that land became part of our plot because my dad took care of the unclaimed land for 10 years and showed proof. The neighbor at the bottom of the hill eventually builds this big, ugly metal fence around his part in the middle of the project. That was his yard and a third of the space that had been cleared. I found that annoying, but whatever. Well, he yelled at us every time we went to play somewhere else or slid down the hill. He used to work as a police officer. The reason he gave for not letting us play there was that it would drive him crazy. He didn't bother us, so we kept playing. He put up a wall of trees along the bottom of our hill one summer to stop us from sledding in the winter. All of these were between 6 and 8 feet tall, and the trunks were only an inch or two wide. As we slid down the hill, we destroyed the trees that were in our way and just shrugged. May have been a bit of a jerk move on our part, but it turns out that the spot where he planted the trees was part of our plot and not the empty one. So when he threatened to sue, my dad, a lawyer, just laughed and pointed it out. The guy gave up after that point. Our neighbors took out the plants that were protecting their yard from erosion and now blame us for their water problems. We spent a lot of money 2 years ago to fix our property's bad drainage, which was already there when we bought it. To get water to drain more evenly, we changed the slope of a few spots and built a riverbed out of big stones to slow down, break up, and redistribute a running channel that was washing away our fence line. As a result, the water flowed more evenly through our yard. Less water went down the hill to our neighbor's backyard, and the water that did go through was slowed down and spread out to avoid washouts. All of this was done by professionals. City engineers approved the plans, and the work was checked to make sure it followed all the rules for water routing. The trees and bushes that were planted along the steep hill where water drains were taken down by our neighbors at the beginning of this year. These were put there years ago as part of plans to control drainage and erosion. But they blame us, and their lawyer has told them that we didn't follow the rules for water routing because their landscaper told them that our graded riverbed was the cause of all their problems. I think they're going to enjoy reading the copies of the permits and inspections we sent them. I win. I reside in a very old house that also has a garage that is very old. In point of fact, the garage was constructed as a single building with a wall serving as a partition between two sections. The neighboring section of the garage is owned by the neighbors. Consider the following: 1 building, 2 garages, and 2 properties. One day, new people move in next door. In the mail, we find a letter from the attorney of our new neighbors, which comes before we have the opportunity to officially introduce ourselves. In the letter, it is explained that the neighbors will be taking ownership of our portion of the garage. They're going to be so kind as to pay for the maintenance, and we will be able to make use of it to the extent that they are not. We have our lawyer write them a letter kindly asking them to F off into the sunset. We believed that was the end of the matter. One day, the neighbor next door makes the decision that he's going to paint a portion of our segment of the garage. In the morning of the following day, we went out and painted again. In the end, the neighbors are forced to vacate their home because they were unable to pay their mortgage. Experience that is somewhat surreal. A professor of mine is a teeny tiny bad A expert in the field of criminal justice. Purchased a home in a community development. The development consisted of a circle of homes that were marketed to people aged 55 and older and surrounded a park that featured a playground, gazebo, and other amenities. Then, in the vicinity of it, there were houses that were marketed to families, particularly families with young children. It was the old F's in the middle who attempted to bring the playground town down because the children were being too noisy. This was despite the fact that the children were using the playground with their grandchildren and drinking on the outdoor gazebo every night. In the end, the professor decided to hire a lawyer in order to convince them to back down, and he also joined the board of directors of the HOA in order to give everyone the middle finger. If you want to watch the part 2, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.